anti-Semitism and the false doctrine of replacement theology tooth and tong. We are going to be here as consolation to the Jewish people because they are the firstborn of God.
Would you all please stand for the Israeli national anthem?
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and of the free and the home of the brave.
You may be seated. Wow, we are so glad to have you all with us tonight. I hope you're glad you're sitting beside the person you're sitting beside. And if you're not, too bad. Or you can move one or the other. Once again, I want to welcome you all here as pastor of the church to Praise Tabernacle. Many of you have been here before. And tonight is a highlight event for this church, for Praise Tabernacle. It really is. And I'm just sure that in this room filled with both Jews and Christians, that there might be a couple, just maybe incy-bincy, slight little bit of theological difference here, I think. But that's not why we're here. We are here to support and to be in solidarity with Israel. Can you say? And I also want to take this moment tonight to remember those that are still being held hostage in Gaza, even as we speak. And among them is Omri Miran, whose brother-in-law, Moshe Lavi, was our speaker last year. And that young man is still in captivity as we speak here tonight. Let's pray for him. Let's remember him. I want to read a scripture before there's a video, and then Pastor Dave's going to come and pray. Psalm 133 says, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, running down on the beard of Aaron, running down on the edge of his garment. It is like the dew of Hermon, descending upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanding the blessing, life forevermore." We are so glad to have you all with us tonight. And those of you that are not from this church, we're honored to have you with us. And if you're here tonight and you're of the Jewish faith, we're just tickled to death to have you with us tonight. Pastor Dave. There's a video and then Pastor Dave.
We are the antidote to cowardice in the face of evil in our nation's capital. We have the answer to those who have lost their way. We will not accept silence or double talk, no equivocation, and no excuses for the allowing of anti-Semitism in the streets of the city or in our universities. This must stop.
As Christians United for Israel, we take pastors and leaders and students to Israel because we're not interested in just telling something that's happening. We're wanting to show what is happening. They can be able to have facts, and they can be able to tell, this is what I've seen, this is what I know.
We have educated more than 1,500 college students who, since October 7th, have held over 150 events and points of activism demonstrating support for Israel and the Jewish people. This year, we held hundreds of Kufi Israel Is events throughout America, where we educated thousands of Christians in churches, community centers, and on over 300 college and high school campuses.
This is what education does. The question becomes, now that you know, what can you do? What can you do to help spread the word? That spreading of the word is the information that we need.
Let me first thank you on behalf of the government of Israel and the people of Israel for your love, for your friendship, for your support for so many years to support the Jewish people and the state of Israel.
We stand with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We stand with God's firstborn son, Israel. Today, tomorrow, and forever. To date, CUFI, along with its member churches, has sent more than $11 million of emergency aid to Israel.
To be in a room where you know you are loved, you are supported, and these people are doers. They get things done.
Kufi, thanks so much for all you are doing to push back against anti-Semitism.
In 2024, CUFI advanced vital policies and legislation aimed at securing Israel's victory against the terrorists that surround her, combating anti-Semitism at home and abroad, and ensuring the next generation has a proper understanding of the Holocaust. Our efforts ensured Israel received the vital aid she needed during wartime and have helped advance the Iran Sanctions Enforcement Act, the Countering Hate Against Israel by Federal Contractors Act, and the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act.
Once again, the United States has a decision to make. Will we stand back and watch evil endure, or will we stand up against this new menace that seeks to end the Jewish people? I hope you agree with me that we must fight, fight, fight.
HUFI is the right organization at the right time with the right message.
These are just some of the things that we have been working on. These are some of our many successes, none of which would be possible without your help and without your support. The message is simple. The work isn't always easy, but I assure you it is impossible to beat somebody who refuses to give up. And that we never will. Thank you so much.
What a privilege it is to be here tonight. Thank you all for coming on behalf of the Jewish nation, the Jewish people. Let's pray together. O God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we worship you, and we are so thankful for the grace that you have poured out upon our lives. Lord, we pray for those who are persecuted, those who are still in captivity, those who have been harassed and abused. Father, we pray that you would lift them up. We also ask that the nation of Israel would be kept and protected and surrounded by you and your power, and that, oh Lord, the best days, her best days, are yet to come. And we're thankful for us to be able to stand with that nation. And Lord, we believe that the best is just around the corner, and we declare it in the name of our Lord. I have the privilege of introducing a man that I've known for 20 years, and it's a privilege to know him. He's a man of God. His name is Rabbi Jonathan Houseman. He's a second-generation American with a passion for philosophy and history, politics, religion, and languages. He's fluent in Hebrew and Arabic, and is highly credentialed with a BA in Judaic Studies, an MA in Economics and International Affairs, focusing on the Middle East, and a Doctor of Law degree. He has spent significant time studying in Israel, including Ramallah, Judea, and Samaria, as well as in Egypt, before and during the Camp David process. He is conversant in Jewish and Islamic sacralized text and literature, and on top of that, he's a friend. And I ask you to welcome Rabbi Jonathan Houseman.
Thank you all. And Pastor Dave, thanks for that introduction. I get to go home tonight. My kid's going to say to me, Dad, you're really not as great as they think you are. But by a show of hands, not that I can really see out there, how many of you here tonight are not Jewish? By a show of hands. You don't have to apologize. Listen, here's the reality of it. I want to educate you with regard to how I view the world today. How somebody steeped in rabbinic tradition, somebody who lives with the ebb and flow of Jewish life, views what's going on. And I'll let Kasim lift you up, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring you down right now. So, Kasim, maybe it's best that I do what I need to do, and then you do what you need to do, in that order. The world today, as we say in Yiddish, oy vey. When Chazal, our rabbinic sages, considered the interaction in Genesis between Yaakov and Esau, between Jacob and Esau, they concluded the following: Esav soneh et Yaakov. Esau hates Jacob. And it's said to be halacha, it's said to be Jewish law, this phrase, this statement. Not in the sense of a mitzvah, not in the sense of a commandment, for something we Jews had to do, but as a descriptive reality that has to be accepted if you're Jewish. Unfortunately, as many of you know, most American Jews seem lost. Jacob, of course, was the father of Jewish people. Esau was considered to be the progenitor of Rome and other peoples in the world not Jewish, and following from this, the Western world. Many commentators today would say that there are certainly non-Jews in the Western world who do not hate us Jews. And I'm glad to say that you all are part of this cohort. You support us, you love us, and you want nothing else from us. But I have to tell you, what the broader concept of Esau hates Jacob addresses is a reality that has persisted not just in the Western world, but in the world in its entirety for generations. Or as my grandfather, who was yeshiva educated in Europe before immigrating here, used to say, we've been putting up with this chazarai for 2,300 years. And if you don't know what chazarai means, use your imagination, you got it. It is, as my grandmother would say, if you don't have something nice to say it in Yiddish. Okay, so. I grew up with stories from my grandparents about the slaughters of the pogroms. Hello? All right. The pogroms. We studied about the Spanish Inquisition, banishment of Jews from England, France, Spain, Portugal, the German principalities, herded into ghettos in Italy, or what became Italy. The Holocaust, or as we prefer to call it, the Shoah. In this sense, Esau hates Jacob. It's not only accurately descriptive, but it is also cautionary. And we encounter a similar cautionary description of reality in our liturgy. Y'all know about the holiday of Passover, right? For those of you who are not Jewish, have you ever taken a look at a Passover Haggadah? That little booklet, as it were, that, listen, you used to get it with Maxwell House coffee. No, that's not, I'll tell you when to laugh. It's not a joke. We used to get it at Maxwell House coffee. There's a line in it. V'hi sha'amda, we are told not only one arose and tried to destroy us, rather in every generation they stand up to destroy us. We read this at the Passover Seder every year. I'm 68 years old. I've heard it for 68 years of Passover Seders. Now, why do I mention all of this tonight? Because I, along with so many other Jews in this world who feel that Israel is so important, that feel that Israel is the center and the whoop and wharf of our identity, we've been struggling to comprehend the reason for the vile, and you guys use the word anti-Semitism, but don't use that word, use the term Jew hatred. When you use anti-Semitism, you're using a term invented by Wilhelm Marr in the 1880s to describe why Germans should hate Jews. Jew hatred. We've been struggling with this. And it's efflorescence since October 7th. A hatred of such proportions that my grandparents, all four of my grandparents, who left Europe and the Jew hatred there to come to here for what they thought was freedom, forget the fact that Roosevelt let boats not land in this country and Jews shipped back to Europe to die. Just a little factoid there, okay? My grandparents are rolling over in their graves. It defies logic, but it needs to be understood. And there are plenty of answers, but it's difficult to find an answer that quite satisfies. Jew hatred, anti-Semitism, it's shape-shifting. Different times, different places. The rationale presented for hating Jews shifts. It's not a constant. It is, as Natan Sharansky said, the constantly mutating virus. Who knows if there's a real reason for Jew hatred? Sometimes the reasons advanced for hating Jews conflict with each other. We're bad because we're communists. We're bad because we're capitalists. We're bad because we insist on being a people apart. We're bad because we won't participate. Jews stick their noses in where they are not wanted and try to control things. If it sounds like Tucker Carlson, it's because he says some of these things. Steve Bannon the other day, too. I'll give you one. I can't walk in downtown Boston with one of these things on my head. All right, I wear an Auburn University cap. Why? Because Bruce Pearl's there, and he's a guy that doesn't shut up. He's also a personal friend. I used to speak with my daughter in Hebrew out in the house and outside of the house. I don't dare speak to my kid in Hebrew outside my house anymore. Why? Because the reports in and around Boston that Jews are, for speaking Hebrew, are getting beat up. And I'm too old to go through that anymore. Oftentimes, the reason is inadequate to explain the virulence of this hatred. Jews are resented because they are so successful academically. Okay, fine. Then I remember my daughter saying, "You're not as smart as you think you are." My wife used to say that too to me. At other times, a reason is powerful and might explain a good deal, but can be applied only within one specific historical context. There are, for example, analysts who believe that Europeans harbor an unconscious guilt about the Holocaust, and so project that sin upon us. If we Jews are capable of prosecuting Gaza as they claim we are, then the guilt about what was done to my relatives is dissipated. And I want you to understand something. My grandfather had 78 Houseman relatives in Hungary and Poland on the eve of World War II. One walked out of the camps. One. Melanie Phillips. Some of you came up to my synagogue back in May to listen to her speak, a good friend of mine. She discusses this phenomenon and many other phenomenons in the broader text by her latest book. Another explanation that speaks to me is with regard to the fact that Jews, and we did this, we introduced the concept of moral accountability into the world. One of the reasons Hitler hated us. You can't do as you please, we taught the world. You are morally accountable. And because of that, hostility comes our way. The heart of the matter. There's something about Israel, the country and the Jewish people, that makes the world furious. And as a rabbi, and Pastor Dave and Pastor Allen will tell you, I am not the shy and retiring rabbi type. I confront this all the time. I see it all the time. This is Alistair Heath, one of the sane journalists in the United Kingdom. You talk about an entity that is now lost. Britain is lost, guys. Lost! This is what Alistair Heath writes. The real reason why Israel is vehemently attacked has nothing to do with Gaza, genocide, settlements, or wars. All that is a cover for something deeper, a discomfort not with what Israel does, but with what Israel is. A nation this small should not be this strong. By the way, he doesn't just mean military strength, and Israel is the regional superpower. Let me throw this one out to you. Do you know that 27% of all Nobel Prize winners are Jews? To put it another way, you guys would be nothing without us. Now, you swallow the pill for the little camera regarding intestinal cancers and all that, that comes from us. You get your polio vaccine, that's us. You'd be nothing without us. Israel has none of the attributes typically associated with world powers. No oil reserves, no vast population, no global alliances that fully defend it, surrounded by enemies, condemned by international institutions, slandered by celebrities, and yet it thrives. And what is true for Israel goes for the Jewish people as a whole. You want vacuous dunderheads? Hollywood. Military innovation. The F-35 wouldn't fly today if it were not for Israel's innovations in that aircraft. And by the way, what goes for the F-35 went for the F-18, the F-16, the F-15, the A-4, the A-10. That's Israel. How many of you drive cars that have that eyesight in it? I drive a Subaru. It has eyesight, right? You can't get into an accident. That comes from Israel. Those of you who are on your cell phones right now because you say, would this guy shut up already? Okay? You're on your cell phones. You know how much of that technology is from Israel? Developed Kiryat Gat, Motorola. They're all over there. Security, medicine, technology, agriculture, intelligence. What has Israel and we Jews have done? What we've given to the world? Rescue hostages in impossible situations. Entebbe, 1976. July 4th, 1976, what a birthday gift to the United States. A birthday gift. Wins wars it's not supposed to. And I'll be honest with you, the world can't cope with it, honestly. So, false expectations the world reaches. It must be cheating. It must be lobbying. It must be theft. It must be oppression. Because heaven forbid it's real. Heaven forbid it's earned. Or worse, destined. And you guys believe it's destined. We Jews are a people of destiny. You want to know what drives the world crazy? Because God forbid we really are the chosen people. By the way, we are. History is not random. It's not. Evil does not get the final word. And I'll tell you something else that this crowd will understand. God keeps his promises. So there you have it, my friends. The world again and again and again. Century after century after century. Millennia. Honestly, we've been putting up with this for 4,000 years, to be quite honest with you. And if you think I'm kidding, go back to Jacob's interactions with his father-in-law and see the descriptions of Laban's house, how they describe Jacob and Jacob's success. It goes all the way back. You want to go further? Isaac and Ishmael. This antipathy on the part of the world rises again and again, and each time it is attributed to a different cause. Thus, the mutating virus, thus the shape-shifting. But this is what underlies it. This is why our sages warned us about the hatred of Jacob and why our Passover liturgy says forces will rise up against us in every generation. I hate to tell you, you cannot eliminate this hatred. No matter what Kasim's going to tell you, you can't eliminate it. No, and I'm not saying this to be cute. It's a truth. We can attempt to mitigate it by trying to act more like other nations, but why would a Jew want to do that? Unless that Jew is not conversant with the ebb and flow of Jewish history and Jewish texts and Bible and. We have to fight Jew hatred when it arises, whatever shape it takes. We have to broadcast the truth and demand legal protections, as Senator Joni Ernst spoke about. Too bad she's retiring. Should stand tall, not delude ourselves. Hatred won't go away. It's like a cultural miasma that exists always and flares up with a flurry from time to time. Logic won't defeat it. You know why? Because how can you talk logic to a moron? How? I mentioned in Hebrew the first piece of the phrase that we recite on Passover. The second part from Vihisha Amda. And I can't end, and I do need to end, without sharing this with you. Because we also say, and the Holy One, blessed be He, saves us from their hands. History stands as witness. I'm standing here today. We have this hall peppered with Jews who stand here today. Think about it. With all the calamities that have befallen the Jewish people, we have endured. No one has succeeded in eliminating us. Our enemies wish they could, but they can't. We have survived historical comprehension. We should not be here. Other peoples who were powerful at different periods of time have gone the way of the dodo. Ancient Greece, gone. Ancient Rome, gone. Spain as a world power, gone. Has a good tennis player today, but other than that, they're gone. The Assyrians, gone. The Babylonians, gone. The Canaanites, don't listen to this idiot who says that the Palestinians are descended from the Canaanites, okay? They're not. Canaanites are gone. Phoenicians are gone. Gone. They're all gone. Think of that. All the historical enemies of the Jewish people, for the most part, have disappeared. We have other problems now. We have our own who hate us, like Bernie Sanders and whatnot. How could it be that 3 years after the Shoah, with 1/3 of my nation having been annihilated, a Jewish state was founded and that has flourished to such a degree? And then you tell me that God doesn't exist. Sorry, I can't accept it. And I want to end with this. There is great suffering today amongst the Jewish people. You should all know this. Our soldiers have been killed, maimed, injured, families torn asunder because of death of our brave men and women in the IDF. And notice it's called the Israel Defense Forces. Families suffering because of the Chatufim, the hostages, dead and alive, still imprisoned. But if Jewish history has taught anything, it's that we will rise above this horror ultimately. And we will be stronger. And Jews from other nations will have come to be a part of the greater Jewish nation, now centered in Israel, the largest Jewish population in the world. While the nations that have been left behind because of Jewish immigration to Israel will be weaker, Israel will be stronger because of their various contributions. I want you all to pray with full hearts for the strength and wisdom of true leaders in Israel, amongst the Jewish people here, people like Pastor Dave, Pastor Allen, the Hagees, my dear friend Bishop Keith Butler, all these wonderful people in Kufi. They need strength, they need wisdom, they need succor. We need young people, and Kasim, you're young compared to me, I hate to tell you. But guys like Kasim who are fighting for our Jewish people's safety. Rescue of our hostages wherever they are in the world. Those of us who are here Jewish tonight, we know how much we need them. And we know we're amongst friends. My friends, I thank you so much for the opportunity this evening. And as somebody said earlier tonight, Am Yisrael Chai, may the Jewish people live. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi Jonathan. After listening to Rabbi Jonathan speak tonight, I'm thankful for two things. I wish two things. Number one, I wish I was a Jew after he was done. And the other thing is, I'm thankful that I'm not on Rabbi Jonathan's synagogue board. All right. Anyhow, thank you, Rabbi. We appreciate that so much. Honored tonight to have Kasim Hafeez with us. And Kasim, you and I have never really personally met. I've seen you a lot of times down in San Antonio and in Washington, but we never actually met. But it's such an honor to have Kasim here tonight. Kasim is a British citizen of Pakistani Muslim heritage who grew up being exposed to radical anti-Western, anti-Semitic, and anti-Israel ideas on a daily basis. During his teenage years, Kasim embraced radical Islamist ideology and became very active in the anti-Israel movement. However, he read Alan Dershowitz's book, The Case for Israel, which challenged his fundamental beliefs and caused him to undertake a period of research and reflection that led him to Israel in 2007. Witnessing the true nature of the Jewish state changed Kasim's perception of Israel. He felt a moral obligation to publicly speak out for Israel and the dangers of radical Islam. Kasim has spoken all over the world, including at the 2013 Global Forum Combating Anti-Semitism. Kasim has appeared on radio and television and printed media. Tonight, let us put our hands together and give Kasim Hafeez a Rhode Island welcome. Kasim, so good to have you here tonight.
Thank you very much. That's no pressure at all there. Okay, so it's interesting, as Pastor touched on. Look, I was an extremist. I was anti-Semitic. I was anti-Western, all these things. I didn't think that almost 20 years later that those same ideologies, those same dangers that I embraced would become so prevalent in the United States. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal journey, how I went from somebody who was at demonstrations chanting death to Israel to being the deputy director for communications at Kufi. Strange career trajectory. And I also want to talk a little bit about the current situation and what we should be doing. So I grew up in England in a place called Nottingham, which is famous for Robin Hood, who was a thief, but no one's perfect. And look, my grandparents came to the UK from Pakistan. They came in the 70s. And this was a very conventional immigrant story. They came from Pakistan for a better life, a better chance of education for their kids, economic opportunities, and all those things. And I often joke, if you're a bit of a history nerd, you'll know that the British controlled India for a very long time. And then in 1947, they gave independence and created both India and Pakistan. And the British said, look, we've been here for a few hundred years. It's now your country. We're leaving. My family went, psych, we're coming with you. So my family went to England, and the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I think this is very common with any immigrant community, you end up kind of clustering into communities with people like yourself, especially when you come from a community like from Pakistan where English isn't the language. You know, the culture is very different. But overall, the community that I grew up in, it wasn't really a bad place. You couldn't do anything because even before social media, your mom knew before you got home. Like, I don't know what sort of network these grandmas were running, but information got home very quickly. But overall, it was pretty good. But the negatives of that were because of how insular the community was. Like, my grandfather came to England, worked his whole life. He passed away a little under 10 years ago, worked for a British company his whole life. To the day he died, he could not write or read English and spoke very little because he didn't have to. Everything was so insular within the community. And so I've lived in a number of countries. I grew up in England, I lived in Canada, and now I live in the United States. And the United States is very unique. As in, I'm not going to be diplomatic. Why am I going to be diplomatic? I'll just be honest. Rabbi kind of opened the door with that. So, in the United States, my experience, okay, I've been here 7 years, and God willing, on October 22nd, I will be a citizen if my interview goes well. In the United States, I've always felt, since day one, genuinely like an American. You know, I did not want to move to America. My wife was like, I'm not moving to Canada, it's too cold. I was like, okay. First lesson of marriage. Genuinely, I had never planned to move to America, but when I moved here, I fell in love with the country. I literally have the American flag tattooed on my forearm. I am a British citizen. I have a British passport. I lived in Britain for 29 years. I never felt British. Because in Europe, not just Britain, in Europe, there is a perception that to be British, to be French, to be German, you have to be a particular way. You have to be what they would deem as ethnically British, which is white. And as you can see, I'm not white. And also in Europe, you're seeing that Jews fell into that category historically too. That, well, you're not really British, you're not really French, etc. In America, not my experience. In America, it's like, what college football team do you root for? I was like, well, rather embarrassed to say right now, but the Florida Gators. And that's all anyone cares about. So in the UK, there was this strange situation where I grew up being British, being born in Britain, but never felt British. You feel like an outsider. And that creates very fertile ground for bad ideologies to thrive. And look, I didn't ever believe that I would see it happen here, genuinely. About 10 years ago, I was in Canada, and I was talking to somebody in the Jewish community, doesn't matter who, and he was saying how he didn't think that the problems with Europe would come to North America. And I remember saying this, because I was literally talking about this to my wife recently. I was like, I told him, I went, that ocean is not big enough to keep away the forces that are coming if you don't do anything. And so what you had in the UK was essentially this. You're born in Britain. You don't feel British. You go to Pakistan like I did all the time. You're not Pakistani because you speak English as a first language. You're culturally British. So you don't find anywhere to belong. And then when you grow up in a Muslim community, like Islam is integral to your life. You eat halal, you pray 5 times a day, and all these things, which aren't necessarily bad things. But then what you saw happen, and it happened so rapidly that I don't think anybody really could do anything about it, where you had a number of things happen which changed how young British Muslims, because we were British Muslims, we weren't Pakistani, we were born in Britain, started analyzing how they looked at the world. And I believe the catalyst for that was the publication of a book called Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. Satanic Verses were released, I want to say around 1987, 88, and it was a work of fiction by an Indian author, Salman Rushdie, and many Muslims found it offensive. Now here's the thing, whether you like it or not, for better or worse, the United States has freedom of speech. You can say or offend anybody. But if you look at it from my grandparents' generation, they've come from a country, Pakistan, where if you criticize Islam, or even somebody says that you criticized Islam, you can go to jail for the rest of your life or be executed. So here they are living in the West, and this book is perceived to insult Islam. They didn't really know what to do. And what that unleashed was, I think we're still dealing with the ripples of that today. You had the Ayatollahs in Iran announce that they'd put a religious edict, a fatwa, on Salman Rushdie, the author's head. It was the obligation of every Muslim anywhere to find Rushdie and kill him. And he went into hiding for many, many years. And it was actually, I think maybe 2 years ago, he was actually stabbed in New Jersey after coming out of hiding. He's lost sight in one of his eyes. But for young Muslims seeing this, we're like, okay, where do we fit into this? How do we feel about this? And into that kind of void of trying to figure out your own identity, these extremist groups emerged very rapidly. And their narrative that they told, it's not that complicated. They created this narrative that, okay, you as a British Muslim are a victim of British society. Now look, and again, I think this is common with any new immigrant community, you normally kind of start off in poorer neighborhoods. Because people are working like the Pakistanis came to the UK weren't doctors and professors, they were manual laborers. So you have all those challenges, which every immigrant community deals with. Yet these groups came in and went, look, you are a victim of British society. What does that mean? Because I don't know. I'm 42, I still can't figure it out. But what that does, and I've seen it here in America too, when people say America is this or America is that, how do you address that? So when you say, Britain is against Muslims, the landmass
every single person in Britain? Like, what does that mean? And it's phrased that way because it creates a victim narrative. And when you have a victim narrative like that, but then there's no way to address it, what do? Like if my wife says, you didn't clean up yesterday, can you do something about it? She is coming to me who wronged her, and I'm going to be like, no, I'm not cleaning up. She'll say, yes, you will, and then I will. So you deal with the situation. But when somebody says Britain is against Muslims, like where do you go with that? And on top of that, it creates such a sense of overwhelmingness that you feel hopeless. And that's exactly what extremist groups want, because when you feel hopeless, you are more susceptible to bad ideas and extreme actions. So I went along this path of extremism. I went to college and it just increased. And here's something which is really interesting. I've been a Christian for around almost a decade now. And even within the Christian world, there are disagreements. And when those disagreements occur, you either have, a very long letter writing contest, apparently, that pastors do going back and forth. And, you're wrong because of this, and you're wrong because of that. But in Corinthians, it goes on and on. And I just finished Bible college, so I did a lot of that. In the Muslim world, you have Sunnis and Shias, who are the two main sectarian groups, and they don't like each other. And when they don't like each other, they don't start writing letters, they start killing each other. And you've seen that all over the world, in Pakistan, in Iran, in Saudi Arabia. And what was interesting to me that was extremist groups on both sides of the Sunni-Shia divide, be it Hezbollah, who are Shia, be it Lashkar-e-Taiba, who are Sunni. One thing they all agree on is it's because of the Jews. Whatever evil is happening, it's because of the Jews. And again, it's really interesting to me that these extremist ideologies that exist, they create the problem and then present themselves as the answer, which is fascinating to me. Like, what was the kind of core part of my radicalization? Because all of this was happening in the background. And I've said this multiple times. When I was growing up, my father would frequently say that Hitler was a great man, and his one mistake was he didn't murder enough Jews. That is an early message I grew up with when I was 7 or 8 years old. Within my community, which wasn't extreme or radical, there was Jew hatred. It was, the Jews controlled America, the Jews controlled the UN, the Jews controlled the media. I swear to the Lord Almighty, I wish you guys controlled the media, because it would make my job so much easier. I would only work 5 days a week. But that was the perception. And the crazy thing about this is, unlike almost any other bigotry, with Jew hatred, people hate Jews when they've never even met a single Jew. It's a very bizarre thing with Jew hatred. And, my family are from Pakistan. Pakistan, not really a country which is known for its Jewish population. The community I grew up in didn't know anybody Jewish. So, you start absorbing these messages without even knowing. And that's incredibly dangerous. So when people with more radical agendas come into your life, you're like, I know this. I've heard, the Jews are evil. I've heard that. I heard the Jews control America, et cetera, et cetera. So I was going down this route of very violent extremism. And what happens is when these groups take away your hope, it's so they can manipulate you more. And ultimately, you see this in any sort of extremism, be it religious, be it gang culture. How far can we push you? What are you willing to do? And living in a world post 9/11, post 7/7 attacks, I thought violence sends a message. Ultimately, the Jews are the reason for all that is going wrong. There's not much I can do about generally, but I can send a statement and attack Israel or attack Israelis. Thankfully, that didn't happen, or this would be really awkward for everyone. And what changed, honestly, it was a gradual process. I'm at college, I'm at my most extreme, and we would hold anti-Israel events and all these things. And I come across a book called The Case for Israel. I thought Israel is this evil, genocidal state. Israel is an apartheid regime. All these things. I'm a college student, so I know everything, obviously. So I buy this book. I'm like, look, I'm going to read this just to prove how wrong the Zionists are. So I start reading this book. bear in mind, for the last 3-4 years, I've dedicated my life to hating Israel, to campaigning against Israel. You know, I had all the merchandise, like everything. And I'm reading this book, and Dershowitz lays out some very basic ideas. The fact that the Jewish people have had a presence in the land of Israel for thousands of years. That was completely new information to me. The idea that Israel is a democracy and it has Arab citizens, again, completely alien idea to me. So I read it through and I'm like, these are all lies. Because look, when you have made a decision that I am gonna use violence to make a statement, that I'm willing to kill people because I disagree with them, you don't read a book and go, got it wrong, who knew? Like, it's just not that simple. And, you know, I started researching more and looking deeper into it. And after around a year, I was in a really strange place, because here is what I believe is the truth, that Israel is evil, the Jews are evil, and the world would be better without Jews in it. But then I'm reading books outside of my own echo chamber, which are presenting facts with evidence, and it's telling me the exact opposite. And it's very difficult, because when you believe something to that extreme, it's very difficult to give up the idea that you're wrong. So I made the decision to go to Israel. I thought, I'll go to Israel, see the reality, and the reality will be bad. I know that, because I can't be wrong. And then I can go back and go on to the path that I'm choosing. 2007, I went to Israel for the first time. So I hadn't ever traveled alone before, out of the country. I'd been with family to Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, etc. And so I did all the research about traveling, and in England we have something called the Home Office, which is like the State Department, which issues travel advice and consular services. And it says, be honest. When you are dealing with Israeli security, always be honest. Israel has a heightened level of security. So here I turn up at Tel Aviv Airport, Ben Gurion, never been to Israel before, don't speak any Hebrew, speak a tiny bit of Arabic, not very good. And they say, what is the purpose of your visit? I was really honest. And that's how you spend 8 hours in Israeli security. It's another story for another time. But on that trip, I eventually go to Israel and see it for myself. And look, long story short, it was life-changing. Seeing it with your own eyes, speaking to actual Israelis, you realize how much we're lied to, how much I was lied to. And I made a choice then, after spending, I think, about 3 weeks in Israel. I have a choice to make. I can either go, okay, I've seen this, I'm just now not going to be involved at all, or I can just share what I saw. I can just tell the truth. So I did the latter, and when I went back to England, that's all I did. I started speaking to friends, family, just about what I saw, you know, like, why do we hate these people? We have no reason to. Didn't go down well. You know, didn't get the reception I was expecting. And eventually that kind of spiraled as I became more and more vocal. Because in my mind, I was like, look, I've seen the reality. And there are people like me, growing up in the similar circumstances to me, who are harboring this toxic hatred based on lies. If I can prevent one person going down that route, it's a win. So I carried on speaking out, and then around 2012, somebody asked me, hey, would you like to come and speak? I was like, why do you want to hear me speak? And they're like, well, we heard about your story, you wrote an article. I was like, okay, you know, if you guys are that desperate to hear someone speak, sure. But by that time, I had become more vocal, and things kind of took a real challenging turn for me. I started to get a lot of death threats. My relationship with my family completely broke down. And by 2014, I decided that it was time to leave the UK. There's only so much that you can deal with of having to look over your shoulder constantly. So I did what every Brit does when they're trying to get out of Britain, and went to Canada. I went to Winnipeg too. I was like, look, if somebody really wants to kill me, if they come to Winnipeg, fair play, like, good for them. And it was when I moved to Canada, I connected with Kufi, and I went to the first summit I went to. I remember walking out the night of War in Israel, and I was like, I want to work for this organization. And at the time, I wasn't Christian, so it was a whole thing. So that brings us to today. So on October 7th, 2023. I had just got back from a friend's birthday, and so my wife also works for a pro-Israel organization. And it was, I think, maybe midnight, and I saw the alerts going off for the rockets. I also run Kufi social media. I was like, look, I'm just going to post about this, then I'm going to come to bed. I did not go to bed that night, obviously, and didn't for the next 3 nights. And what we saw after October 7th, after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, was not what you would think. You would think if there was ever a time where a person can just look at what's happening and choose right and wrong, they can see what happened on October 7th was complete evil. But instead, Jewish communities all over the world woke up on October 7th to see what had happened to their family in Israel, and then to see people in the United States and London and France and all over celebrating that. And Rabbi was right. I don't think you can get rid of anti-Semitism. It is an ever mutating cancer. What we have now, what the real challenge is, it's similar to modern warfare. So World War I saw mass casualties that the world had never seen prior in any conflict of that duration. Bullets weren't new. We'd had bullets for a long time. But the means of delivery had evolved with the invention of the machine gun. Propaganda is not new. It's the means of delivery have just evolved with social media, with TikTok, with all of these things. And look, we sit at a crossroads. Like, I will always say that I love this country. This country is my home. It is, and I'm proud to call this country home. But we are at a crossroads, and we can't pretend that we're not. We have a decision to make. Anti-Semitism isn't growing, it's become normalized, be it on the left or the right, be it Tucker Carlson or Bernie Sanders. And we all have a responsibility, and that responsibility must go beyond tonight. Like, it's fine that you're here, and I appreciate that you're here, of course. I do not want to downplay that at all, and the fact that you are here says a lot. But if this is all it is, that you leave this and you're like, I heard from some great speakers, I feel good, and you do nothing, then nothing changes. Yeah. That's reality. Look, the Bible says that to those that much is given, much is asked. We live, in my view, in the greatest country in modern history. We live in the greatest idea in modern history. We have been given more than almost 99% of the world. But we're also being asked to do something. I was doing some research for Kufi for a video we recently did, and I got onto this topic of propaganda and what Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda administrator's idea of the big lie. And there's different versions of what he said, but the gist was that you've got to tell a lie so outrageous, so ridiculous, and people will believe it, which sounds ridiculous. The very premise sounds crazy. But here you have the Jewish people, maybe I think at like the highest number, if we're overestimating, say 20 million globally, and I don't think there are 20 million Jews globally. But apparently they control America. They control the economy. If you ask some people, they control the weather. And if you do, again, thank you. I live in Florida. I'm very grateful. But it's crazy. And then you have another population of over 1 billion people with massive oil wealth who are actively working to fund universities, fund media networks, buy up sports franchises, and push an agenda, and we just don't talk about it. Like, it's absolute insanity. But that's the reality that we're living. The idea of the big lie has become normalized in every facet of society. Now, I understand that when you look at this, it can be overwhelming, because every single person thinks, okay, like, what do I do? Like, you know, I drive afford and, pick up my kids from pre-K. Like, what do you expect me to do? If you believe that, you've not been listening. Genuinely. Every single person in this room has a purpose. You are here tonight for a reason. It's not a coincidence. So I'm gonna this is where I split my message in two. One of the problems when I speak is I don't write anything down, so I go all over the place. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good. We'll see how this goes. But, okay, so 2 parts. So first, I want to talk to the Christians in the room, okay? If you're not Christian, you can stay, it's fine. Look, we are in a situation where we are fighting for our country, we are fighting for our friends, and we are fighting for our families. There's a quote from Adolf Hitler in the very early days of the Nazi Party when he addressed his opposition on the radio. And he went, "Those who oppose me, I have your children and your children's children." Who is speaking to your children? What messages are your children receiving? Who is brainwashing your children to believe that this is not a great country? Who is brainwashing your children to think that the Jewish people are evil, that Israel is evil? Without the Jewish people, we have nothing. Pastor Hagee always says, the Jewish people don't need Christians to explain their theology or history. Christians need the Jewish people to understand where we came from. And now we have so-called conservative commentators talking about all the evils the Jewish people have done. If you want to talk about the Jewish contribution to this country, look at what Washington said very early on in America's independence when he went to a synagogue. Walk around the military graveyards, cemeteries, and see how many Star of Davids you see. A lot for a tiny population. The Jewish people are integral to this country, and I believe one of the most incredible assets this nation has. And the fact that they feel afraid, that they feel alone, means that we are failing. Simple as that. Let's not put any sort of caveats to it. It means that we are not doing enough. And look, I'm not going to just say do something and not give you any practical advice. There are so many ways. When you hear anti-Semitism, and this is when it's most challenging. When somebody says something to you online, it's really easy to respond because you're like, I don't know, Dave 369. But when it's at your dinner table or it's challenging because this is somebody you know is a good person, but they just said something which is not true. They just said something anti-Semitic, and that's where you have to speak up. That's where you have to challenge it. We can't allow these lies to become the norm. There is not a genocide happening in Gaza. By every single metric, every shred of data, it's not happening. Since November 2023, a famine has been on the brink in Gaza. Since November 2023, there's been a famine happening and it's still not happened. It makes no sense. When my fridge is empty, you got 2 days and we got to fill it, or the fridge is empty. It's not like Hanukkah that it carries on for 8 days. It just doesn't make sense. And the irony of it is, continually, and they've been caught, the media lie, and they just go, oh, sorry. And the irony that the New York Times, the newspaper that hid Stalin starving Ukrainians, Joseph Stalin starved Ukrainians, and the New York Times went, there's no famine happening, and now they're going to want us to say that there's a famine happening in Gaza. We live in upside down world, but this is why you have to get educated, learn the facts, and be able to speak up, because this is your moment. If you stand for something, if you care about something, Pastor Hagee always says, don't tell me you love me, show me. And this is where we show up. And if you go to this congregation, you are very fortunate to go to a congregation where the pastor stands with Israel, stands with the Jewish people, loves Israel, loves the Jewish people. Speak to your pastor. How can I do more? How can I reach out to the Jewish community? Even just telling your Jewish neighbors, hey, I know there's a lot going on in Israel. No, you're not alone, means a lot. Right, so you probably can't tell, but I box, and I'm also a boxing coach. And the gym I go to, a few days after October 7th, I was like, hey, Josh, he's not Jewish, has no connection to Israel. can we put up an Israeli flag? He was like, why? Explain what happened. He was like, sure. In the gym that I go to, which is in not the greatest neighborhood, where primarily the people who come to that gym are from lower economic backgrounds, every day they come into that gym and they see an Israeli flag. That starts conversations. We have so many conversations during class about what's happening in Israel. Be that person that when someone reads something which says Israel killed journalists, they're like, hey, is this true? Because otherwise they're going to believe what they're reading on TikTok, what they're reading on Instagram. And honestly, the one bit of advice I will give you when dealing with that sort of situation, if you don't know, it's okay to say, I'll get back to you. Nobody knows everything, but make sure that you're coming back with a correct answer and speak to your pastors. And your pastors can reach out to us. If your pastor doesn't know, it's probably like 0.001% of the time, he can reach out to Kufai and we will be there to support you. That's what we do. Because we have to fight this together, united. Because otherwise, it's not just us, it's not just the Jewish community, it is the very nation that your children are going to grow up in. And when your children look at you and your grandchildren look at you and go, what did you do when you could have stopped it? You don't want to look back at them and say nothing. And now to our Jewish friends, and if you're not Jewish, you can also stay. Look, I'm not going to make any bones and try and pretend that the situation isn't disheartening. It is dark. It is depressing. There are so many challenges, and anti-Semitism seems to get worse every single day. When you think you've seen the worst of it, where you think that you've seen places where actually this place is safe from Jew hatred, it will crop up. But let me say this, like Rabbi said, the fact that you are here today, the fact that you are sitting in this room is a miracle in itself. You are a miracle. You are a defeat to every single person and empire that thought they could destroy the Jewish people. And remember this, and please, like genuinely, don't forget this. You stand on the shoulders of giants. The Jewish people, your ancestors changed the world that we live in. Without the Jewish people, we would not believe in these values that we talk about. The idea of human rights and justice are Jewish ideas. The idea that education is for everybody, not just the privileged, is a Jewish idea. The idea that care for the sick and the weak is a Jewish idea. If you look at ancient civilizations, look at Sparta. If somebody had any sort of physical ailment, they were left to die. It was the Hebrew prophets who said, no, this isn't the way. It was the Hebrew prophets who said that peace is the ideal, not war. And for carrying that light of truth, of justice, of God's very light, you have been hunted and attacked throughout history. But you're still here. And what's even more incredible, and we really can't forget this because it's so easy to overlook. And look, I have been involved in the Israel world, a Zionist for almost 20 years, and I forget this sometimes. We are living in a time in history where there is a Jewish state. We are living in a time in history. What happened on October 7th was horrific, but in the pattern of Jewish history, it's not new or unique. What is new and unique is that the Jewish people said, no, we will fight back and we will bring our people home. And if there's one fundamental thing I've learned in the last 15 years, and even from my own childhood, what Jew haters hate more than anything else, it's not just Jews, it's not just a Jewish state, it is a strong Jewish state that fights back to defend itself, that will not tolerate aggression and violence from its neighbors, and if you come to kill the Jewish people, we will hunt you down all over the world. And as a future American, God willing, we should stand shoulder to shoulder with that state, because Israel has stood on the front line of terrorism before we even knew it was a thing here in the United States. Israel has been fighting the wars and the battles a decade before they even touched our soil. We have no better friend and ally than Israel. And I would challenge anybody to prove me wrong. People always say, what has Israel ever done for us? Hurricane Katrina. Israel was one of the first teams on the ground. Anytime America has suffered a natural disaster, Israeli teams are in the air before the disaster's even stopped. Whenever America has been under any sort of threat, Israel has been there to assist. The technology that keeps American troops safe is Israeli technology. We have no better friend. And here's the most incredible thing to me. We have allies in the Middle East. Qatar apparently are an ally, but you know, I'm also a boxer, so anything's possible. But every one of America's allies in the Middle East are Arab allies who have a purpose. Like, I'm not berating them at all. When they have been attacked, they ask for American support. When Saddam invaded Kuwait, Saudi Arabia called for America to come and help. When other nations have been attacked, Israel never asked America to send its children to fight its wars. It always says, we can fight our own wars, just stand with us. And that tells you a lot about Israel and what they value. We are two nations which are so close in so many ways. And we are looking at a time in history where Israel defending itself, Israel fighting to get its people back, is being used as a tactic to draw a wedge between us. That is dangerous, it is short-sighted, and it is just absolutely disgusting. Because, look, Pastor Hagee says this all the time. If you look at the trajectory of America, its rise into a global superpower, and you look at how America treated its Jews, it's no coincidence that the country who has been the closest friend to Israel is also the world's only superpower. And look at the countries which have tried to launch wars on Israel, those countries who refuse to even acknowledge Israel's existence. They're not doing so great. And just as history has shown, those mighty, mighty empires who thought that they could destroy the Jewish people, they are now footnotes in history. We go to the British Museum, because we kind of took everything. We go to the British Museum to see relics of those empires. While if you go to Jerusalem today, there is a flag flying over Jerusalem with a blue Star of David, the capital of the state of Israel. And that is cause for hope for all of us. So with that, thank you for being here. All I will say is be strong, be resolute, and do not be silent, because our very future depends on it. God bless America. Am Yisrael Chai.
You may be seated tonight. Is that loud or is that loud? I just want to say that we have about 20 demonstrators that are across the street here. And police are out there, so you don't have to worry. You're safe. You're safe. We have lots of security, good security. I just want to say this. Ignore them. Completely ignore them. Don't stop. Don't try to talk. Don't even honk your horn. And that makes them irrelevant. And tonight, I want to thank you for coming. I'm so glad that you're here. I get choked up every year we do this because I love this. And at Praise Tabernacle, we want you to know that we stand with you. Everyone here from the Jewish community, we stand with you. And the bottom line, the reason we do is because the Bible is for Israel. This is not a political thing. This is a biblical thing with us. And we just want you to know that that's where we are. I'm not going to take a long time tonight. I had a whole bunch of things that I wanted to say. I'm going to blame it on Rabbi. But as we are here tonight, let's work together. Let's work together. It's taken us quite a few years. We've had many since 2014, Nights to Honor Israel. And it's been just a little bit more and a little bit more, and people realize, okay, they might be okay, they might be okay, they might be okay. But we're just glad that you're here. And by the way, you should have known over the years that we just want to tell you we're your friend. We want to work together with you. And let me just read this as we close tonight. Ecclesiastes 4:9. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, if two lie together, they will keep warm, but how can they be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. My Jewish friends, you're not alone. You're not alone. We're your friend. And this congregation is with you. Would you stand with us tonight? By the way, we have some refreshments. If you want to stop out there, you're welcome to have some refreshments. By the way, eat them all up, because we don't want to have to take care of it, or we just want you to eat it all up and go. But I'd like to close with a word of prayer tonight. Would you bow your heads with us in prayer? Heavenly Father, you have called us to walk in faith and in justice and in peace. And today we come before you, Jews and Christians together, united in heart, in hope, and in our longing for peace. We lift up our voices as one, asking you to move with power and mercy. Bring peace to Jerusalem. Let your shalom fill its streets, its homes, and its borders. Protect its people. Comfort those that grieve. Heal what is broken and restore what has been lost. May the land you made holy shine as a light to the world. And let our shared biblical values of compassion and justice and truth be stronger than the voices that seek to divide us. Where there is confusion, bring understanding. Where there's mistrust, plant love. Where there is silence, give us words of peace and grace. Give wisdom to our leaders in the Israel, the United States, and the world around us. Help them see clearly, speak boldly, and choose what is right, even when it's hard. Give us faith like Abraham to trust your promises even when the path ahead is unclear. And give us leadership like Moses to guide with humility, courage, and a heart that listens to your voice. And give us bravery like David to face the giants with unwavering trust in you, knowing that the battle belongs to the Lord. Blessed, O God, I pray you will be because of what has happened tonight. We ask it in your name. Amen. Thank you for coming. God bless you all.